Welcome to the Sunday service for the Unitarian Universalist Church of Pensacola. Our gathered congregation represents the area along the Florida Panhandle and the Alabama Gulf Coast. However, today you can join us from anywhere, and we are so glad to have you with us. I'm Reverend Alice Silty, and it is my honor to serve this congregation as minister, and a true pleasure to serve a congregation whose mission is to celebrate diversity, strive for justice, and inspire love. As always, we begin our service with the lighting of our chalice and music for centering with Denise D'Angelo.
Across the generations, we have carried the flame. We fought the injustice, sang the songs, spoke for truth, and built something lasting.
We join in the line and we carry the flame forward.
Across the generations, we are tending the flame. Hand in hand together, we share in the work of fighting injustice, singing the songs, speaking the truth.
And we are here to build something lasting. We join in the line and we carry forward the flame.
Across the generations, we have been nourished by this flame. We are singing new songs, breaking old barriers, sharing in the work. And as we find our own space in what has been, we are here to make space for the next person as well. We join in the line and we carry the flame forward.
Across the generations, this flame comes to us. We are here now for songs, for justice, for the community sharing this work. We are here now to build something new and lasting. We are ready for a new day together. We join in the line and we carry the flame forward.
I'm Laura Keith King, a member of this congregation, and our opening words are, "We belong to the earth," attributed to Chief Noah South. This we know. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth. This we know. All things are connected like the blood which unites one family. All things are connected. Whatever befalls the earth, befalls the sons and the daughters of the earth. We did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves.
Please join me in reciting the covenant of this congregation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning, friends. My name is Trista Bluen. I'm a member of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Pensacola and a UU seminary student. I know most of us are struggling to find our way in this new digitally connected world. And what we really could use is the touch of a caring hand. If that's you, I'm sending you the biggest, warmest hug. Do you feel it? Good. Know that you're dearly loved. I hope you'll enjoy my message today on the lesson of the forest and intertwining our roots in a communion of shared creativity, and it will leave you inspired to connect with each other in any way that feels safe for you and for them. Within a deep forest in Austria, there stands a grove of spruce trees. Now, when that grove is under stress, often in times of drought, there is a beetle that can smell the grove's stress from miles away. That beetle has but one purpose to its life, to get under the bark of that particular tree so that it can reproduce, of course, to the expense of the tree. But something fascinating takes place when that beetle attacks the tree. The spruce produces this thick sap that oozes out of its pores, attempting to seal it off from the beetle's invasion. The tree doesn't stop there, though. It also helps its fellow trees by sending out a warning scent to the trees nearby. Danger is near. Prepare. The scent triggers the other trees to preemptively release their protective sap, and so on. Just to hedge its bets, the tree also sends the same message down into the ground, into its root system, where that warning message is carried throughout the network of other trees. Our congregation, our world is also under tremendous stress. We are seeing attacks like never before on the seemingly susceptible bodies of so many. Will we be able to survive this drought of compassion and the attacks from those who wish to exploit the weakened or different? In these moments, I believe it's more important than ever to call forth all of the resources at our disposal to fight for our second principle as UUs, and that is justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. But we are tired. How can we keep up the fight when some days it feels like the well has completely run dry? When injustice, like that swarm of beetles, threatens to take over our bodies, how do we keep our integrity? My friends, we must not give up. We have within us a connection to a wellspring that can gird us with the strength to carry on and survive the onslaught. This source can help us to gain our footing and to help preserve the forest as a whole while handling the invasion. Where do we begin? By connecting into our roots. See, our natural reaction might be to close down. I get that. For those of us who have been fighting for survival all of our lives, it can feel like standing alone on an island is the safest place to be. Hear me out. We might feel like we are alone on that island, but we are here today because, knowingly or unknowingly, we've been nurtured by the ground of being and the messages on the wind. We are not alone, and it's because of our community and that beautiful mystery that supports it that we can carry on. Can you recall a time when you got a phone call, a hug, a card, a gift, even a passing smile, when you so desperately needed to know that you weren't alone and it would eventually be okay? Did you feel that infusion? Your spirit lifted through the love and care of your fellows. The comforting balm of relationship is such a beautiful gift. How can we develop that feeling even more, and how can we share it with others though? First, we must embrace with gratitude what we have. It's so easy to see the areas of lack when we're immersed in a culture that idealizes perfection. But that is all a mirage. In reality, we are all beautifully flawed in our own ways. Like a cracked mosaic, this brokenness makes us a divine piece of art. For we are nudged together into our diverse community, seeking connection with what makes us unique. Can you think of some of the gifts contained within our congregation? I sure can. Filling our hearts with those thoughts can in itself be refreshment to our very weary souls. But how do we connect to these gifts? That's the question. Well, we can start by seeing and connecting with our young ones. Within our community and our congregation, we're growing the seeds of wonder and possibility in the minds and hearts of our children, both in fellowship and within our religious education classes. We have the opportunity to nurture what is innately in their DNA, their desire for fairness and their disgust and sadness over the suffering of others. We can listen and validate their innocent, fresh voices and ideas that are echoing across the barren canyon of a society filled with the bones and dry bones of cynicism. I recall the beautiful story where Jesus tried to teach his followers to come back into the innocence, humility, and wonder. He pulled a child into their circle, and he said in Matthew 18:4, "Whoever becomes humble like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." Right now, young people across this country are saying, enough is enough. Despite the vehement hatred spewed in their direction, they carry on in their beautiful idealism. In Nashville, 6 teenage girls who had met on Twitter decided to do something after George Floyd's death. They started the group Teens for Equality and were able to organize a march through Nashville that brought more than 10,000 people together. 10,000 people. What an impact. It even resulted in the mayor noting that their efforts had raised the city's collective conscience. That is the power of children and young adults to change the hearts and minds of people. Can you take some time today to think of ways that you can validate and encourage our young ones to embrace the possibilities that lie ahead for them? Tapping into the power of intergeneration connection happens when we invite all ages to the table in shared dialogue. It becomes most powerful when within our hearts we nurture the value of this process. The power of storytelling is a tried and true method of communication, rich with symbols that have carved the landscape of humanity for thousands of years. When we choose to listen to the stories of our elders and create dialogues grounded in a humble desire to understand each other, we are participating in a sort of footbridge building occasion where together we can assemble paths forwards and backwards in time. Through this storytelling, we're able to see how our stories led to a joy or a grief. These strong emotions are universally felt across the ages. When we hear of another's joy, we can relate it to our own feelings of joy and begin to see that there are many paths that carve our understanding of what it means to be human. Maybe together we can take those joy and grief stones, those beautiful stones, and we can set them into our shared bridge, building and understanding that there are many ways that we can land in a shared space and place of immense emotional grounding. Our connections can go even further outside the walls of our shared community. Connecting with those who see the world differently is an invitation to widen our perceptions, to deepen our compassion. An unattributed Native American proverb reads, "It takes 1,000 voices to tell a single story." Our country, our world is like a shared forest. A forest will flounder if it does not find a way to work together as a single organism. In the mountains of Utah, there is a forest of quaking aspen that has survived for thousands of years because it is actually just one living organism. Of course, it lives in the larger ecosystem. There have been attacks on the individual trees, but the power of that 100-acre living organism is in its individual trees working together, collectively. Not only do these trees give help to the weakened trees within their own organism, but they also attempt to work harmoniously within the greater ecosystem of other trees, plants, animal, and fungi. These often competing elements have evolved to work together for the system's continuance. So too within our world. It can be very difficult to communicate with individuals who perceive situations very differently than we do. But if our goal is to evolve into a stronger world, we need to take courage, choosing to engage when it's safe to do so. Now that might look like a falling apart, as we see now with the dismantling of systemic racism, but we must keep talking, listening, seeking. Walling off, dividing, that will leave the entire system susceptible to collapse, and then we all fall down. According to Parker Palmer in his book, Healing the Heart of Democracy, Abraham Lincoln, when speaking to our deeply divided country, realized that in order to survive, in fact thrive, we needed to, quote, hold its divisions and contradictions with compassion, lest we lose our democracy, unquote. Imagine what he was witnessing, which I would think would be very similar to what we're seeing today, a country with a huge ideological chasm, born out of very different backgrounds. Lincoln hungered to preserve the unity and chose to find ways to bring people together, even when it was a painful process and difficult to do. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. also yearned for the forming of beloved community and a country that was unified in the celebration of its diversity. According to Vincent Harding, one of King's friends and speechwriters, King believed it was just as important to work on our own perspective of others as it was to work outwardly towards civil rights. I would ask, how could our body be strong, survive as a whole, if our hands, our legs, our kidneys, our heart were to only work for the functioning of itself? There must be a sharing of resources or support, even when the parts are mainly concerned with their own functioning. There must be communication between the parts, alignment for the greater good, or even the lower back must be in harmony with the big toe if the body is to stand erect. The ground of being, the place where our roots intermingle with each other, that is where we will find nurturance for our growth above ground. Our source, the mystery, acts as a place to find each other. It is the medium in which our connections can flourish, where the young sapling's baby roots are protected by the mighty oak's impenetrable veins, where the mycelial network shares messages of water with a thirsty pine grove several acres away. It is through the sharing of connection with all that we are granted the resources to create. Each of us are invited to the shared communion where we each present our gifts. For many of us, these gifts have laid dormant. But when we can begin to see our inherent worth and really know it, to nurture that creativity, we can share it with our community. The invitation to leaf and flower, unfurling our petals as an offering to each other and to the greater world, can fill the air with the sweet scent of hope and possibility for greater justice. How are you gifted? What may lie within you that is waiting to unwrap itself and gift the world? Are you ready to join in with community to explore your creativity, giving others the courage to do so as well? Then I invite you to reach out today. A tree doesn't need to touch the whole forest to give and receive of its resources. It needs only touch one other tree. So while we may feel overwhelmed by the thought of all that needs to be done in our quest for justice and right relations, we need not feel that success is only in motivating 10,000 people to march. It can be simply to hold the hand of one other person who is struggling to find meaning today. It can be removing an item off a high shelf for someone who can't reach it. It can be helping an animal on the side of the road that has been injured. Or it could be simply to say to a stranger, blinded by fear, that they matter and are seen. These small acts of connection form our web, the network of roots, grounded in source and mystery, that grants us access to the shared realization of the strength of our forest. We may be one tree, but we are in communion with our mighty forest that will not be taken down.
For a church to exist, it must have people that care that it exists. It must have people that support the work of the church through their generous giving of time and talent and treasure. The church is the community of ourselves. Its energy and its resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. So as we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within this community. We will now hear music from Denise D'Angelo while we have the opportunity to text and give.
Our closing today is by Kathy A. Huff. Our time in this place may have ended, but our connection to each other and this community remains. Together, may we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, live the selfless deed, trod gently upon the earth, and fill the world with compassion. Until we meet again, blessed be.
Chalice